All right, this is Foxboro Rush. Normally with these shows on a Sunday, Sean, obviously we're doing these right after the Patriots catch an L or get a W. It's only happened once this season. But they played Thursday night. You know, Sean and I, we talked intensively about them getting their teeth kicked in. We'll still talk some Patriots, but we'll take a look around the league in today's episode as well. First things first, S-Mac, my man, how you doing today, bro?
I'm ready and watching this Cowboys game right now. They're getting their doors blown off, so it's fine.
You sound great. You sound so excited. You sound so enticed. And your favorite thing is not only you watching the Cowboys lose again and Mike McCarthy be a joke, but you also have to do this podcast with me. It's your two favorite things in the world. I know how it is. Let's get into...
I prefer that today.
Okay. Yeah, if it's bad, just make it worse. Don't mix some good and bad. Just make it bad on bad. You being stuck with me for 45 minutes. Let's get into looking back through the Patriots' loss Thursday night against the Jets when they were never in the game. Offense was held to 3 points. Jacoby Brissett couldn't break 100 yards passing. Alex Van Pelt in the game plan was never in it. But through 2 weeks, this is a 1-2 team. We saw week one them come out and stun the Bengals, play sound football in all three phases, be a great team defensively in tackling, forcing turnovers as well. Week two, overtime, shootout with the Seahawks. Talent eventually prevailed. But you look at 1 or 2, maybe 3 plays is where they let up. And then week 3, Thursday night. Jets a desperate team. They were 1-1, just like the Patriots, but they just simply outplayed them. And the Jets and the Patriots never had an answer for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Sean, where do you put this team through 3 weeks? Like, what do you think they are? Who do you think they are?
I mean, I think they're a bad football team that needs pretty much everything to go right for them to be competitive. And a lot of things have went against them. I mean, the turnovers, it's not like Jacoby Brissett's turned the ball over or anything like that, but, then you go to injuries and those things are going against them. The offensive line obviously can't block. So the offense is completely hindered and handcuffed by essentially all the troubles that are going on in the offensive line. And then you go to the defense, and it's kind of a lot of the same. They've had a few injuries at key positions, and it's not fair to put as much on the defense as we have. But that's the only way that they're competitive. And the fact that they've lost 3 of their top 6 or 7 defenders at the start of the year, in Barmore and Judon, and now in Juwan Bentley, which we've talked about. It's they need everything to go pretty much perfectly and for them to be competitive, and things haven't done that, and that's a tough way to win.
Yeah, looking back on like that week 1 stunner, obviously that went amazing for them. Is you have a long snapper forcing a fumble. You have a backup Jets tight end for the Bengals reaching for the goal line to break it, and that's how he fumbles right on the doorstep. You even have Hunter Henry going reverse course and saving Jacoby Brissett from throwing a bad interception in the red zone, which translated to a field goal, which obviously was huge for the Patriots to win over the Bengals. But since then, there haven't been the turnovers forced. And this is a team that has to win with defense. And you alluded to it. They're without 3 of their top 6 or 7 starters. Christian Barmore out indefinitely. Matt Judon now in Atlanta. Juwan Bentley done for an extended period of time with a torn pec. Jabril Peppers, we've seen him go in and out of games being banged up because that's how he plays, and he plays through injuries. I mean, he's a warrior. Go on the offensive side, and literally looking at it Thursday night, they were down to their 3rd string left tackle. Maybe you could say he should be a practice squatter, or he should be a backup right tackle at best. They're down to their backup left guard and Michael Jordan because Sidney So is yet to play it down in the regular season. And the Jets exposed that, throwing stunts, throwing blitzes their way. The communication was just an absolute disarray. They compiled that too with there is no Kendrick Bourne. This is a team without 5 or 6 key starters on both sides of the ball. Week 1 was a stunner, and it gave us hope of look how well coached they are. Look how conditioned they are. If they take teams to the hill every week, they have a shot, which is somewhat did in Seattle. But eventually that passing game was just stumped in the second half against Seattle. And the Seahawks with DK Metcalf, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, with the running game getting just enough, shorthanded, down a right tackle, down a starting running back, did what they needed to. It was watching that team on Thursday night have no answers for Aaron Rodgers in that offense. Defensively, no adjustments made, bringing a lot of blitzes, meeting that middle ground between blitzing less than they did against the Seahawks, more than they did against the Bengals because they didn't have to. But what I thought would be a key matchup for them is a less mobile quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. If they keep him in the pocket, which we've seen them get to the quarterback rushing 3 or 4, has helped them out on the back end, but they weren't. There was no pass rush integrity, no containment for Aaron Rodgers. whether he was getting the ball out quick or extending it, just picking them apart. And Christian Gonzalez, there were questions of how he played against Garrett Wilson. It was a perfect throw, and he sold out for the pass deflection, which he had to do by a great route and a great pass. But between Jamar Chase in week 1, DK Metcalf in week 2, and now Garrett Wilson in week 3, out of 19 targets that have gone Christian Gonzalez's way, which will happen when you're facing those good of receivers, he's only allowed 12 catches for 75 yards and 1 touchdown. That 1 touchdown, again, being a perfect pass from Aaron Rodgers. Like, he's held his own, but outside of that, they haven't had an answer in the secondary. Jonathan Jones has repeatedly been picked on by teams. We saw JSN just expose Marcus Jones. If they're going zone coverage or man, it's all these teams beating them with man beaters and these quarterbacks just outplaying them. This is a bad football team. This is a roster that is one of the worst in the NFL, was one of the worst at the end of last season. They brought back a lot of key core guys. Like, I like the re-signing of a Kyle Duggar. I like the re-signing of a Hunter Henry, a Ramondre Stevenson, a good back. And again, to that point, Sean, a running back that's put the football on the turf 3 straight weeks. They got lucky to recover it the first 2. It eventually bit them a week 3. This is a bad football team. And when we saw the upside of like, okay, they can mess around and beat some teams, like maybe they beat the Dolphins because they can just dominate them at the line of scrimmage. A team that they should have had a better shot against the Jets, their coaching left them out to drive like what Alex Van Pelt did. Through 3 weeks, this is a bad football team coming in. This is going to be a football team that's losing a lot of games. And at the most crucial parts of a roster, offensive line, they have nothing figured out. Wide receiver-wise, they have one guy that could get separation consistently, but he's a slot and he's not really a downfield threat. You don't have anyone dynamic. At the running back spot, a guy that puts the ball on the turf. And at quarterback, you have a journeyman that you hope can make it through the next week or 2, let alone through 17 games. This is just a bad football team, and the coaching hasn't helped. And I think they've come down to earth after that week 1 high of being shown in week 3 against a Jets defense that wasn't superb, but looked great against them because there's so many holes on this roster, Sean.
Yeah, and even to going back to the offensive line, so they're on their 3rd left tackle because Chuck Okorafor obviously gone, Vidarian Lowe injured, so now it's Caden Wallace. They're on their 3rd left guard too. I mean, when you take in Colt Strange, that would have been their top left guard. So they don't have him. They don't have Sidney So. Now they're down to Michael Jordan. Who knows what it's going to be in the next few weeks and that sort of thing. But it's just the makeup of their roster and the amount of talent that they don't have. It's very clear. And I think, like, if you were to ask me my biggest takeaway on the season to this point, it has to be the offensive line, because there's nothing. I mean, you can't let your quarterback get hit 15 times like they did against the Jets the other day. And I know Jacoby Brissett's like not, he's not Joe Burrow. He's not like a top 10 quarterback or anything like that, but you're not giving the guy a chance. And so when you don't give the guy a chance and, he doesn't have time, are the receivers creating a ton of separation? Maybe not, but that doesn't even matter because Jacoby Brissett can't get him the ball anyway because of how bad the offensive line is.
Yeah, it has to be the biggest weakness that they have. And that's when they have no hope.
No
and
doubt.
Again, this is when you go back to free agency, when they were talking about cash to burn and having all this cap space. Now that they're excited to roll it over, you need to go out and get actual players in actual spots throughout the field. And I bring it back, and I just don't care that it's $21.5 million guaranteed. It's Jonah Williams. Maybe he's a starter for you for 2 years. But with the way that they drafted, where I like that Jalen Polk pick in the 2nd round, you have assets. Instead of sitting back, trade back up into the end of the 2nd, get a Kingsley Mataya, who is a project at left tackle and has to sit. But if he's sitting behind a pro like Jonah Williams, who's been in the league, he's learning from an actual left tackle how to play left tackle, which he played in college. Like, there were multiple ways to go around this. Now, if their long-term plan was, like they said, Chuks Okorafor, swing tackle, been in the league for a long time. Caden Wallace would have been a left tackle if he didn't have Olu Fashanu on that side while at Penn State. And then they would wait for a Will Campbell or a Kelvin Banks in the upcoming draft, then fine. But there had to be an actual solution in 2024, and Elliot Wolf didn't roll into it, and it's bleeding across the offensive line. Everyone that's covered the Pats has said it's about finding the 5 best guys that play together and see as one, think as one up front. And what we saw Thursday night was anything but that. I mean, Jacoby Brissett leads the NFL. After their 3rd week, it could change after all the games conclude week 3. But leads the NFL in being pressured on 45% of dropbacks. Think of Joe Burrow. He's been pressured through 2 games, an average of 27% dropbacks. Geno Smith, 35%. Trevor Lawrence, average of 38%. I picked certain quarterbacks that either weren't mobile or playing behind okay offensive lines to point out because I didn't want to bring up, a Jared Goff or a Justin Herbert who have some of the best tackles in the game playing in front of them. Like guys are with okay offensive lines and need to figure it out. But that's what it is. And then it's compiled and it's even more significant when you combine that with getting away from your run game, which has been your bread and butter. We'll get into talking Alex Van Pelt in a minute, but this team did not help themselves with the structure up front. You build a team, it's front to back, middle to outside. That's it. And that's great that you point out City So. I'm not sure if Cole Strange would have started over City So, but we'll never know. And to that point, either way, if it was Cole Strange starting, it would be City So as a backup. If it was City So starting, it would be Cole Strange as a backup. No matter what, they're down to their third left guard. Their entire left side of the line is backups or guys that could be on a practice squad, and it's being exposed. And when it's a Bosa, when it's going to be a Jalen Phillips, when it'll be a Danielle Hunter, it's only going to get worse and worse the next 3 weeks for Jacoby Brissett. I was going to ask you what their weakest point is. It's offensive line. If you look past offensive line, who would you say is their second weakest point then?
I guess I would go receiver, but I don't know, maybe, I don't know. That's tough. That's because I do feel like there are a handful. I think the pressure rate besides Keion White, it really hasn't been like over the top impressive or anything like that. And I mean, Keion White has been so good and so dominant that he kind of erases some of that, I guess. But I think I would still go back to receiver. I think just the way the offense has looked in general. You finally get Pop Douglas involved, but you still score 3 points. So it's there's a lot of different Tyquan Thornton. I guess he drew a few penalties the other night, but he really hasn't done much anything.
No.
And so it's the lack of production. I do think it goes, and I've said this a few times now, but I do think it goes hand in hand at the very least with the offensive line struggles. You might even say that the lack of production is because of the offensive line. I think that's fair too. But just when you think about the offense, it's just really hasn't done much of anything.
To me, it's second. Like the worst is the offensive line, and you're right. Like second, you split hairs. I like that you bring up the defensive line. To me, it goes secondary of just the last 2 weeks how they've been diced up. When it was a Jets team with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different receivers or tight ends catching a pass, along with their two backs out of the backfield making catches as well. But 6 different receivers dicing them up when it's a guy with the last name Rucker, like converting key third downs, where it's Christian Gonzalez can almost take Garrett Wilson out of a game plan, but then elsewhere, like a Jonathan Jones, an undersized corner getting picked on. Same thing with a Marcus Jones. And when you have shortcomings in your box with your middle linebacker, that's more for Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers to help out with, and that takes away from your secondary. This team is just not that deep. They weren't great with their starters, but when you get into the depth of the backups, again, it's rearing its ugly face around. I would go secondary just if we've seen what DK and JSN did, and then we see what Aaron Rodgers has done, especially when it will be upcoming Brock Purdy, Miami Dolphins quarterback, fill in the blank there, then a CJ Stroud, and then you'll be getting into the later weeks of Jets, Trevor Lawrence, Will Levis. At this point, I don't know if that game's winnable because Will Levis will serve you up a couple turnovers and maybe a pick six every game. But then do you have the offense that could capitalize on top of that? It's just so compounding with everything. It would either be receiver because it's guys that don't make separation. And Pop Douglas, I like the way Alex Van Pelt got him involved, but still leaving things to be desired. It would be receiver or it would be cornerback. And again, it's the 5 most important positions in football: tackle, quarterback, edge rusher, wide receiver, corner. And you can put those in any order you want to. It's quarterback and tackle, top 2 to me, no doubt about it, because they're intertwined. They go hand in hand. While a good D-line can help out a bad secondary can help out a bad D-line, so on and so forth. And wide receivers, I mean, you could scheme them open. You still need guys to get open. You don't need something elite, but you need something deep and good like the Green Bay Packers have what they're working with. It's just this is a vacant roster of talent. There's a roster vacant of talent. Excuse me. We switched that around.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in week 3. And people could go, well, it's been one game. Like, what are you talking about? All right. Let's see how they do against the 49ers, who are down to Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings as receivers and Jordan Mason in the backfield. But one of the best teams in the league. Let's see what they do against the Dolphins, who still have good receivers and a good D-line. And we'll see what they do against the Texans. Bad offensive line, but really deep. And like, when you're sizing up, can you be competitive? I go back to Drake Maye said, the way he defines a successful year is being competitive, getting better game by game. I mean, they can only get better than week 3, so we think. But can they get back to that floor of week 2? That's all I ask. Not even wins and losses, of being competitive down to the wire, then also cleaning up the small mistakes. And I just don't have the faith in this roster, especially with how banged up they are now, that they can do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I saw it was the Athletics' Chad Graff. He pointed out, I guess, a stat by PFF, and it was that the Patriots only have 4 players ranked in the top 20 of their position groups. So it's Keon White, who's a number 9 edge rusher. Hunter Henry is the number 10 tight end. Jabril Peppers is number 12 safety. And Ramondre Stevenson is the number 19 running back. And I mean, those make sense, but then, you look at the offensive line, Caden Wallace, 56th tackle, Michael Jordan, 47th guard, David Andrews. This was pretty surprising to me, 27th center. I mean, so David Andrews has, a pretty underwhelming start to the season. Layden Robinson, 57th guard, Mike Onwenu, the 46th tackle. So, that's another, you look at those 3 guys, that group, and David Andrews and Mike Onwenu definitely enter the year with higher expectations and being, the 27th center and 46th guard or 46th tackle. So I just think and then you go, it's a really great breakdown that PFF laid out and the Athletics' Chad Graff laid out. But I think that kind of just highlights where the roster is at. And, the fact that they don't have top 20 guys at almost any position, any next to any position besides one, on the defensive side of the ball. So that's where the roster is. And, hopefully you can be competitive. Hopefully, we'll see more games like week 2 against the Seahawks, but who knows? I mean, I really think and we said this after Thursday night's game, that we saw the Patriots we expected to see on Thursday night. That was a team that we went into the season kind of expecting to see not great anywhere. They could not protect for the life of them. They made Aaron Rodgers look like vintage Aaron Rodgers, just got absolutely, killed on the line of scrimmage. So I think that's kind of where you're at. And I think we're going to have more of these conversations over the next, 13, 14 weeks going forward.
3 weeks in and we're doing the check-in on who are the Patriots? What are the Patriots? And this was my call. Our producer Brendan was like, are we really doing it? I go, yeah, I think so. I'm already starting. I dove into tackles before the season began. I'm diving even deeper into that. And at the point too, you point out David Andrews, and that was a guy that was contemplating retirement this past offseason. And I'm not shocked by that rating because it's also so much that a center is responsible for. And when everything's going sideways to his left and to his right, he has to overcompensate for those shortcomings and help them out, and that can leave him out to dry. I still think David Andrews is a very good center. He's one of the top centers in the league. But again, it's having that best 5 up front. And that's why we're talking about tackles and we're talking about guards so extensively, because it leaves this rest of the roster just shorthanded when it's all about complementary football. It's defense, it's special teams, and it's offense. The offense dropped the ball, and the defense never had a chance to even compete in the game because they just couldn't even make any adjustments. We saw DeMarcus Covington blitz at a really high rate, and it was no containment. It was either Rodgers would get the ball out quick against a blitz or get outside if he only rushed 4 and there'd be no containment, and he'd find guys open and he'd pick them apart. We talk about the offense. Let's get into the conversation. Alex Van Pelt, there was also Drake Maye came in, played mop-up duty after Jacoby Brissett was just getting teed off all game and it was out of the game. People were going back and forth whether you should do it. I don't think Drake Maye's career is going to be made or broken by the fact he got those reps, but it is important. Go into a huddle, communicate a play, see the speed, get hit, be like, okay, I got my first NFL experience out of the way. Get those jitters out and that excitement. I don't like what Alex Van Pelt did with Drake Maye. Opening up with a pass, give him a handoff left, give him a handoff right, then do some bootleg, something out quick. A pass that was almost picked off, you're leaving him out to dry at that point. And then also even the calls of, if it was communicated to Drake, first read, second read, high, low, go, get out of there. The kid's got to learn how to not take hits. And I'm saying of running lower. He's a big guy. Knowing to slide. Where to run and just where the lanes can be and where the scramble opportunities are. it was just, it looked like a team for the Patriots and with Alex Van Pelt in an offense that didn't know what they were, but they wanted to go out to prove something, and they tried to prove it with the passing game to start the game, and then the end of the game was, let's get out of here, and again, left their quarterback out to dry. When, I mean, what do you do at that point? But just get out of there healthy. I don't mind Drake Maye playing, but it was ugly front to start. And Alex Van Pelt, everyone's going, well, Drake Maye, maybe you start him now. He made it very clear, like, he prefers Jacoby Brissett in the game over Drake Maye because Drake Maye still has a long way to go, Sean.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He also called Jacoby Brissett tough as heck. He said that Jacoby Brissett was playing the way that the Patriots need him to. So it's very clear that Alex Van Pelt, as it stands now, prefers Jacoby Brissett over Drake Maye. And I don't, we're in agreement. I don't think that's a bad thing or anything like that. But just to kind of hear it. And I will also say, like, I think Alex Van Pelt has been, I don't know, refreshing, maybe, like, honest at the, I think he's been kind of refreshingly honest and straightforward when he's talked to us. So I do think, like, I don't think it's a huge surprise to hear him say that about Drake Maye, but the fact that he did is, it's nevertheless something to take note of.
I go into that, he said, I still think it's by watching is the best thing for Drake Maye. I think there's a lot to be learned. That's where I'll stay on that. So he knows that Drake Maye still has a way to go. Mm-hmm. And he noted, too, of when he went in the game with this bad offensive line and being rushed, he said, quote, it could change your feet, revert back. We're still a work in progress there. Yep. Talking about Drake Maye's footwork, which is one of the rawest parts of his game. But the strides he's made over the course of the spring and summer camp and the games in preseason, obviously he'll be able to do that as an improve and take it to another level, take it to the next level. He said it too. He took responsibility. I should have been heavier with the run. We should have leaned on those guys up front. Talking about earlier in the game and even when Drake Maye was in, as we see, this is still a very green coaching staff with the way Drake Maye has spoken all offseason, the way Alex Van Pelt has handled play calling duties, the way DeMarcus Covington wants to be aggressive, wants to be blitzing, and I love it. They're not forcing any turnovers. And they had the 2 in week 1. It's been blank since. And DeMarcus Covington, the adjustments he can make as well, where the Jets diced him up first half, come out in the second half, dominate them on the ground, and just never had to answer in the passing game. It goes back to of Jets received the opening kickoff. They punted to the Patriots. 7 of the Patriots' first 9 plays were passing plays. They went 3 and out, punt. Jets had a touchdown. Patriots ran another 6 plays with one of those being a run. And then they punted again. The the Jets scored a touchdown. And then it was 14-0. And then you're completely winded, taken out of your sails. A Jets rush defense that was allowing around 130 yards on the ground per game as well, around 140. Like, go and take advantage of that. And they just did not do that, Sean. And that's where you see this inexperience, this green coaching staff shining through, where your best player, your 2 best players on offense are Mike Onwenu and Ramondre Stevenson. What are you doing going away from those 2 early in the game and putting it on Jacoby Brissett, who never had time in the pocket?
Yeah, I mean, that was, and when we were kind of previewing the game too, like that was what we said. And it wasn't just us that was saying that, obviously. I mean, everyone was highlighting the Patriots' biggest advantage was them, their run game against New York's defensive front. And they just didn't capitalize on it. I mean, for lack of a better term, I guess. And, Van Pelt kind of said, second guessing himself and said, if we could go back and do it differently, they would. And it was also it was almost like he was saying that the Patriots set up the pass in week 3 by running it well in week 1 and 2, where like, I guess I understand what you're kind of trying to say. And I don't hate like that heavy dose of play action early either, but like maybe just run the ball again to kind of like further set that up in week 3 rather than like expecting the Jets to, I don't know, look back at your weeks 1 and 2 film and all of a sudden, I don't know, like rely on that. It was kind of strange the way that it came across to me. And it was essentially, like he said, we thought we could pass more in week 3 because we ran in week 1 and 2. And I just think it would have been better served, running more at the start of week 3 and then maybe being able to pass more and play action, all that sort of stuff, halfway through the game.
Those first 2 drives too, the Patriots total time of possession between the first 2, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Like your defense, you left your defense out to dry, the strength of your team, because they're on the field the entire time. They're gassed. And they had 9 minutes total time of possession in the first half, I believe, like under 10. Finished with 19 in the game, where the Jets just always had the football, always had the momentum, dictated how the night went. And it'll be the same thing where this will be a good 49ers team. And if you just keep giving them the ball, they're going to break through. And they don't care to be boring. Like, be boring with Jordan Mason. Be boring out of the play action with Brock Purdy to Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk. Be boring with their offensive game plan. Like, there are coaches that are fine with that, and they know what they are. Like, for how good Brock Purdy has been, how talented his receiving group is, how good of a play caller Kyle Shanahan is, they are time in and time out, year after year, one of the most run-heavy offenses in the NFL. Dance with who brought you here. That's what Alex Van Pelt needs to do. Hopefully he'll learn that lesson in week 3. And even when you're going up against good and better run defenses, you still have to know what the bread and butter of this offense is. Because we hear a head coach talking about, we're going to run. Everyone knows we're going to run. We're not going to stop running until you stop us. But then you have the head coach of the offense, as he's been referred to, going, we'll run it twice out of the first 9 plays. We're going to come out and throw it. We're going to get away from our strength. And we'll see if you guys can stop us in the pass. No, run the ball. That is what you are. That's what your strength is. Especially when, if we go back into it, your starting right guard, Layden Robinson, should have been a backup. But you have Mike Onwenu playing right tackle because your left tackle plan didn't work. Layden Robinson's a good run blocker. He has a lot to be desired as a pass blocker. He's a vicious run blocker. He's one of the best guards run blocking in the league. I'll say that. Like, what you watch on the tape, you love it from him. Dance with who brought you here. Lean on your strengths. Alex Van Pelt needs to remember that, Sean.
Yeah, and we'll see if now they go. Their schedule is just a bear right out of the jump, and we said
it
that
will
too.
All season long.
Yeah, but now they go to San Fran, and you have to try to do that, at the very least. But that's a tough challenge when you go up against those guys.
It's at San Fran versus Miami versus Houston versus Jacksonville. That's neutral site. That's out in London, but Jacksonville with Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, if all 3 of those guys are healthy come week 7, they will wreak havoc on this offensive line. And it'll be the Jets, again, that one back at home, week 8. And by then, it's just who's going to be your quarterback? Who is going to be healthy? Do you trust to have Drake Maye back there? And I say it again your left tackle is a third stringer, your left guard is a third stringer, your center is a veteran, he's solid, your right guard is a rookie, and your right tackle should be your right guard. That is your offensive line up front. And that's when you have 22 pressures on 35 dropbacks against a Jets defense that lost one of their best edge rushers in Jermaine Johnson. With a backup, with Will McDonald playing a bigger role, they go and dominate you in that facet of the game. What do you think, with everyone talking, with Drake Maye, how much he should play? Even people are saying, sit him the rest of the year. If you figure it out with the offensive line, you play him. They're nowhere close to that. But where do you stand on this, Sean? How do you look at Drake Maye playing throughout the year? Whether it is cleanup duty at the end of a game or eventually getting the keys to the car and becoming the starter of this offense.
Yeah, I didn't hate how they got him the last 4.5 minutes the other night. But it's so hard for me to say a week 8, a week 9, because I think if this offensive line doesn't look any better. And Gerard wanted their best 5 to be known by week 2 of the preseason. And we're now 3 weeks into the regular season, and there's just, something has to do with injuries, but they just don't know who their best 5 is. And, there's no cohesive unit. So I don't think, no matter what, I don't think you can put Drake behind that offensive line the way it currently looks. And if it doesn't look any better before week 10, week 12, then I don't think you can put him in. And, I don't think but at the same time, I guess if the offensive line all of a sudden starts to gel at week 6 or 7, then you get him in there. You know what I mean? So I know I'm kind of riding this seesaw over here and, kind of sitting in the middle of the fence, I guess. But I don't think it's a perfect way to say, yes, it's week 10 or yes, it's week 12. It's just, it has to be when the offensive line, molds together. But at the same time, you also hear a lot of stuff. Ian Rappaport came out, Burt Breer came out since Thursday night, and said, if Drake Maye is seeing 30% of the practice reps and they felt the need to get him that 4.5 minutes of playing time against the Jets, the time is coming. And it's not, it might not be week 4, but the time is coming sooner than later. And, that's coming from some really well-known tied-in reporters.
I look at when it's coming. You unleash him against any of these defensive lines coming up. Maybe week 9 at Tennessee, but then it'll be in Chicago against a really good Bears defense. As bad as their offensive line is, but then that's a winnable game. If you get your defense together, if you get your defensive line caught up. I'm all for it. But you're right, though, Sean, it is a seesaw, and it should be. If the offensive line is good, and you see it consistently, and you have confidence in it, put Drake Maye in. Can he get protected? But then also, it has to be attached at the hip to Alex Van Pelt being smarter with scheming his plays. Shorter routes, not deep developing. Because as good as this offensive line may look at some point in this season, they're not going to buy him enough time to have deep downfield developing routes. And you just don't have the man beaters. You don't have the studs that can get open down the field. Guys in Jalen Polk, smart route runner, especially over the middle. Pop Douglas got creative with giving him touches. An end around handoff, a screen off the edge. These are smart ways to get him involved and get him in rhythm. Okay, keep it short, keep it quick. What the Jets did wasn't mind-boggling. It was slants. It was quick getting the ball out fast. It was Aaron Rodgers identifying a mismatch. The second the ball snapped in his hand, boom, going with it and getting the ball in space to a playmaker and then making it happen. Their receiving group is better than the Patriots. I'm not even going to put the Patriots receiving group in the same air. But when you get a Kendrick Bourne back off the pup, if that's week 5, if that's week 6 when he's ready to go, and he has to be eased in week by week, that will give a boost. That'll be veteran leadership that you need. It's little pieces like that can get better. It's all tied to how good the offensive line looks, but it depends so much on what Alex Van Pelt does with the offense. I like hearing the accountability for him, but we need to see more from this guy that's in his first full season as an offensive play caller. He was thrown into it when he was with the Bills back in the day because of someone getting fired right before the season kicked off. He didn't do it in Cleveland. Can he do it now? And there's so much tied to this rookie QB. And with his footwork, still a work in progress. Like his mechanics, once you get in the game and you start rushing, we saw his base not be where it needs to be. We see him telegraphing throws. We see his inaccuracy up and down, Sean. He still has a long way to go. What you see in the preseason is base defenses. It's simple, nothing complex. We were saying watching that game, maybe the Jets call off the dogs now, as a nod of, okay, you got a rookie in. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're going to get out of this healthy. They kept bringing the pressure. They kept hitting him. In the NFL, no one cares. In the regular season, no one cares. Those guys get paid just like your guys do. The guys that you pay need to step up and help out your quarterbacks. Or it's just going to be continually in this duty of them catching licks, taking bad hits, and we don't know who's going to be healthy. And my worry is the progress that Alex Van Pelt would talk about Drake Maye. He regresses back to day one, and they cannot afford that. You want Drake Maye to be further along, so when you have that rookie left tackle that can shore up a lot of things up front to play opposite end of Mike Onwenu at your tackle spots to bookmark, then you have something working there, and then you upgrade your receiving group. You upgrade at the center spot in the interior offensive line. You upgrade on your D-line. But you have your quarterback and your left tackle figured out. 2 key positions that could be under cost control. It needs to be more from Alex Van Pelt. As it stands, as what I saw, I am not putting Drake Maye in. And if you do put him in a mop-up duty, you just run the hell out of the ball and give him really easy passes to get the ball out quick and tell him either throw it or throw it away and figure out how to live to play another down.
And I also do think, just to double down on it, I think there's something to be said about the fact that he's getting as many practice reps as he is. I mean, for him to get 30% of the practice reps, which Gerard has confirmed himself, I mean, that's against a defense that we thought was going to be, a top 10 defense. So they're going to give him plenty of looks. And then he also isn't going to really he's not going to get hit. He's not going to get hit like that in practice. So I think the best way to do it is just to continue to give him those reps kind of behind the scenes, in practice, all that sort of stuff. And then hopefully, maybe he does get a few minutes here and there in a blowout loss like he did the other night. But just limiting that amount of time, I think, limits and it's not just the risk of injury either. It's a lot more about the processing and the footwork and all that sort of stuff. So if you give him a few minutes in the game, I don't think he would take drastic steps backwards when it comes to that.
If you give him a long stance in the game, then it could be drastic on the steps he takes back. For anyone to watch what that offensive line did and go put Drake Maye in because he has a higher athletic upside, which he did show on that 3rd and 8 conversion where he scrambled around the edge to get past the sticks. That's an overreaction. You have to look at what this offensive line is. Let's get into it, Sean. We're going with the early windows of games in week 3. Let's get some NFL week 3 overreactions going. I love doing this. We do it week by week every Sunday. We'll start with this. The 3-0 Minnesota Vikings, after the 34-7 win over the Texans, are legit NFC contenders. Reaction or not? Overreaction or not?
I think that's an overreaction. I will say I've been very surprised by the Vikings. I think it's fair to say that they might have the best coaching staff in the league with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. What he's done with the defense is just exceptional at this point. I mean, to hold the Texans to 7 points today is, that says about as much as you need to. But with that said, I still can't get, NFC contender. I think that's a little bit of a stretch right now. I was just looking at the betting board. They're behind the Niners, Lions, Eagles, Cowboys, Packers, Saints, and Falcons when it comes to like the NFC favorite. And we can debate and we can argue where those teams stand at a different time, but I don't think that it's I just can't see all of a sudden, we're sitting here in late January, early February, and the Vikings have made this push for the Super Bowl essentially.
Yeah, I think it's an overreaction. I mean, they've looked great through 3 weeks. Sam Darnold has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like, it's been amazing, his resurgence under Kevin O'Connell. And that shows, like, Christian Darrisaw up front, Justin Jefferson outside with Kevin O'Connell as a play caller. So much has to go right for quarterbacks to thrive. But for him to come from the 49ers to Minnesota, there's continuity in that playbook and play the way he has. But it's all about the defense for the Vikings. It's still an overreaction to say they're contenders. But they have the base there. They have the foundation. Last week, they forced the 49ers to go 2 for 10 on third down. This week, 2 interceptions. CJ Stroud is what he threw. Was never comfortable. The Texans averaged under 3 yards a rush. This Minnesota team will mess around and ruin some games for some teams, especially playing at home in that dome. They caused the Texans' offensive line to have 3 straight false starts, Sean. Laramie Tunsil, a veteran tackle, was that 3rd straight one. And they had one later in the game in the 4th. Like, they were just shook. But like you said, it's credit to Brian Flores, who could be in position to get back to having a head coaching job as the DC of the Vikings right now, because it's back-to-back years he's played well. They're doing this also with Stephon Gilmore as their corner 1, who again is playing at a high level, is healthy. You could tell his shoulder is better than how he ended last season, especially in the playoffs for the Cowboys. But they're healthy right now, and they're getting so much. All right, Malik Nabers is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Overreaction or not?
I'm going to say this is an overreaction too, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling any fun. I think he's another one. Like, I've been pleasantly surprised with Malik Nabers and how he's able to produce for the Giants, because I think Daniel Jones is that bad. And so just to see Malik Nabers really contribute, and I was going through 23 catches, 271 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the season now after 3 games. That's including his 8 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns today. One of those touchdowns, I was watching the game, one of those touchdowns came almost, I think it was either the play or 2 plays after Daniel Jones missed a wide open tight end for a touchdown. So if Daniel Jones makes that throw to the tight end, Malik Nabers is 1 less touchdown, and maybe the hype isn't as hyping, I guess, at this point. But I can't say that he's a top 5. Top 10, I think probably fair. I can't say top 5.
Hey, that touchdown catch was ridiculous, though. To me, it's all about, I'm talking ceiling here. I'll say he's top 5. It's his athleticism. It's his catch radius, the strength he has, how easily he can climb the ladder and elevate and catch a ball, how strong his hands are with really good route running. Like, his red flag coming out of LSU is that he runs hot, and the Giants knew that, and they took him. If it wasn't Marvin Harrison Jr. in this draft, like, he would have went to Arizona. He would have been that wide receiver 1. And his athleticism outshines MHJ in that facet of the game. Like, he is an absolute game wrecker. I would say he's top 5. And it's Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown. Where do you put them? I would put Malik Nabers in front of an Amon-Ra St. Brown because of what his ceiling can be. I know he can get to that point, but Amon-Ra St. Brown's done it for so many years. Malik Nabers, it's a 3-game sample size. We'll see what he does extended time. Mm-hmm. So I'll say he's top 5 right now. But if you're going, he's going to be top 5. He's top 5. You're saying, no, he is top. That's an overreaction. Let's see how the season ends. All right. Caleb Williams and Will Levis should both be benched. Overreaction or not?
I'm going to say that's an overreaction. I don't even really want to spend much time on the Caleb Williams thing. I just think it's too early. Has he looked great? No, but I mean, throwing him on the bench right now would just be a catastrophic thing for that organization. Will Levis has looked really bad. I mean, some of the turnovers he's had are just, he had a pick today to Jair Alexander. I mean, kind of a telegraphed pick six, went the other way. The fumble that made rounds on social media, I think it was just last week.
It was.
That was really bad too. He has 8 turnovers. He leads all players, all quarterbacks with 8 turnovers in 3 games. Really bad. But the Titans have Mason Rudolph behind him. So I don't know exactly how much of a lift Mason Rudolph would give you. And, Callahan just came out today and said, yeah, we're going to continue to stick with Will Levis. So I just don't think I don't think it's a great situation, but I don't think it's a situation where he deserves to be benched.
He's played 11 games so far in his career. He has 7 interceptions. Well, after today, that's now 9. So he's played 12 games, 9 interceptions. He has 2 pick sixes in 3 weeks. He could get benched mid-game, but he still has to be your starter and get these crucial reps. You can't write someone off when they have such a small sample size. And I agree, the Mason Rudolph thing, I looked at their depth chart, I'm like, that's the guy they have? He's still in the league even? Yeah. But it shows how hard it is to find a good backup. As for Caleb Williams, his offensive line should be benched, not him. They don't give him a chance. But you bench them, it's going to be even worse. Last one will go. Will Nick Sirianni be the first coach fired in the NFL, Sean? Coming off the Eagles, getting that late out of nowhere, pulling a win out of nowhere against the Saints.
I do not think that's an overreaction. So Nick Sirianni is a 3rd and 16 pass away from Dallas Goedert that at 2 maybe Saints defenders ran 3 into each other, and then Dallas Goedert picks up 61 yards, sets Philly up at, I think it was the 4-yard line within the 5, and they score a touchdown that essentially wins them the game. With that said, that's if they lost that game, I think that Sirianni, and I think the seat's hot, but I think it is incredibly hot if he loses that game. It's coming off a borderline impossible week 2 loss to the Falcons. I saw at one point, I think it was 2 minutes left, that I think it was a next gen stats or something, that it was a 0.7% chance that the Falcons win that game with less than 2 minutes left. And for Atlanta to win that game and beat Philly, just incredible. And it's, seeing Philly fans as sad and sulking and just as upset as they are. I mean, that I was on social media today, and it was 4th and 1 or whatever with 14 seconds left in the first half, and Sirianni went for it. They didn't get the first down, but even if they did, it would have been 1st and 10 with 10 seconds left in the half. It was a mind-numbing decision to make, and seeing him make that, and then the fallout on Eagles Twitter was just, chef's kiss. It was really,
for a Cowboys
I just loved
fan.
seeing it.
Yeah, for a Cowboys fan. Yeah. I think Doug Peterson, if they go 0-3 on Monday night, that seat gets scorching hot. And with Trevor Lawrence still having no answer on offense, with paying him, with investing in the receivers, I think it's Doug Peterson, but it is Nick Sirianni too, because again, Jalen Hurts got paid. They invested so much in this offense. They went and drafted on the defense. Can Nick Sirianni keep the culture and keep them winning? And he just can't right now. And if he keeps getting in his own way, Howie Rosen will pull the plug. He does not care. They know what they're doing in Philly, and they have very, very low patience for a guy like Sirianni, where they've got 2 new coordinators in Vic Fangio and in Kellen Moore. Can they get back to winning way? I think it would be Doug Peterson. I just think it's been a rougher start, and there hasn't been progress since they made the playoffs back in 2022, 2023. But Nick Sirianni's next. There's a Brian Daboll's. They won a game, but as long as Joe Shane's there, then Daboll isn't going anywhere. Kevin Stefanski, but the Haslams, they should fire themselves into Deshaun Watson, not Stefanski. But yeah, I think it's either Sirianni or it's Doug Peterson. I don't think it's overreaction that he would be the first coach fired. All right, he's Sean McGuire. I'm George Balekji. This was Foxboro Rush. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime, please subscribe, download, rate, and review. If you're watching on Nession's YouTube, please hit the subscribe button as well. As you guys know, new episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have some excited guests for later on in the week. We'll share more then, but for now, we'll see you Wednesday.